interrupt me as I go along. I did put 45 minutes in for this. I don't think it'll take 45 minutes, but obviously if it does, then that's absolutely fine as well. So let me just start presenting the slideshow. So Team Huddle Package Hour Manager's Guide. So as I've said, what I tried to do when I was thinking about how to put this together is how it was presented to us at the GM meeting. You know, it was kind of the concept of what this was introduced by David and by Chris. So I kind of split it into 3 sections. So we've got Engage, which is where we're introducing the concept. Inspire, where we're kind of revealing, making people happy and what that means. And then I thought it was really important to add a 3rd section about how we keep the conversation going. I think it would be really easy to kind of do a briefing and then not touch it again. But, you know, going forward, I think it's really, really important that we understand how we can embed, make people happy into our language, into our culture, and into everything that we do. So as I've said in the introduction, we've got the Engage, Inspire and Empower 3 pages with activities, ideas and tips for you to use in your team huddles when you brief out making people happy. Debs, obviously you've said you've already done it with your management team, which is amazing. I'd be really interested to hear the feedback that you get from your management team as they're briefing out and from colleagues about how they're finding it. I've also said here, you don't need to use them all, okay? There's ideas, tips and activities in there. It's like a pick and mix, choose what you want, okay? If you want to use them all, great, use them all. If you want to do the ball game as you have Debs at the Pheasant, you know, and you've got other tools in your toolbox, then absolutely feel empowered to go ahead and use them. But again, if you do, you know, it'd be really interesting again for you to feed that back and how it went, and then we can share that with others. Something I thought was really important here, and maybe in some sites this is where we'll have to get creative, is where are we actually going to hold this briefing? Do we have a space on site that we know we're not going to be distracted? Do we do the briefing all at once? Do we split it up into different parts if we haven't got time to go through the full thing? We might need to do 2 or 3 different briefings to capture the whole team. Or Debs, as you've strategized and what you're doing is you're allowing your management team to sort of feel empowered to brief it out themselves. So I think that the place that you do it is really important, and just making sure that you're free from distractions to allow colleagues to have the time to digest this is really important. And again, I've put there, if we don't have a laptop on site or we don't have a screen in a convenient place, we can just print off the slides. If you want us to print them off for you, not a problem at all. But the slides can be printed off and you can give those out to your team, no problem. So the first part of it, the Engage part, and again, this is introducing the concept. So we've got the Chris Cook video. It's 17 minutes long. How you want to brief that out is, again, up to you. Potentially, you might want to do it as a group, or you might want to give it the link to your colleagues to have a look at before they come to the briefing. That's also an option. So like I say, it's really up to you how you want to do this. These are just tools to help you sort of get it across the line. The idea part for section 1, I thought was really important to try and define the difference between a mission statement and a strapline. So obviously we have our strapline as a business, which is eat, drink, sleep, explore. We all know that. We're all very familiar with it. Our customers are very familiar with it. But if I'm a colleague who hasn't necessarily worked for a business that has a mission statement before, it might be a difficult concept to get your head around. It might not be. But I know the first time I was introduced to a mission statement in a business many years ago, it kind of took a while for me to get my head around, well, what's the difference between the strapline and the mission statement? Which is why I thought putting this slide together might be quite useful to kind of look at big brands that we're really, really familiar with as customers, and their strapline. So Tesco, every little helps. I'm sure we all are very, very familiar with that strapline. But actually Tesco's mission statement internally and what their colleagues talk about is, we make what matters better together. But as a customer, we would never hear that. That's what they talk about internally. Same with Toyota, to make ever better cars, to build a future where everyone has the freedom to move. Again, that's their internal mission statement. Their strapline externally to customers is let's go places. So I just thought that might be a useful visual for you guys to help colleagues understand where our mission statement differs from our strapline. And then very much as David did in the GM meeting for the activity is kind of get us to challenge colleagues as to what our mission statement could be by asking why. And I know Neil kind of got it straight away at the meeting, and he said making people happy pretty much straight away is what we do as a business. But it's just a nice way, if you wanted to kind of invite colleagues to think about this for themselves. Why are we in business? And try and get them as close to that making people happy mission statement as possible. But again, just an idea. Then we kind of go into the big reveal, and this is obviously the inspire bit where we reveal our mission statement. So I've popped a slide within the slide pack here, making people happy. So again, whether you've printed it off or you're using it on a laptop or a screen, you've got that visual there for them. But I also put in a tip, you know, as a manager, it might be really useful to kind of, when that's revealed, just observe the team's body language. You know, what's their face doing? What's their body language doing? How do you gauge them feeling about that message? And actually ask them, you know, what are your thoughts? Just as David did with us at the GM meeting. What are your thoughts on this? Do you agree that this suits our business? Is this why we do what we do? And just kind of spark that discussion, you know, that could be really useful. And again, if you did use the previous slide with the different businesses' mission statements on, I put together a further slide here to kind of, again, visualize our ICG mission statement and strapline in the same way that we just did for Tesco and PayPal, etc. And actually, what I've also put in that idea part is to reiterate how massive those brands were that we've just looked at: Tesco, Toyota, PayPal, Instagram. You know, those guys do this really, really well. They're massive brands, and this is how important it is for us as a brand that we do this really, really well. And actually, you know, we're growing so exponentially. We could be that big brand that everyone's going to know. Eat, drink, sleep, explore. We have to think big. We have to dream big. We have to be aspirational with this. And I think to sort of reiterate how big those brands are and what we're now doing to sort of embark on our journey is really exciting. And just kind of infuse that into colleagues. Then the activity part. We've obviously got the 5 keys that uphold they are what feed into making people happy. So they are how we feed into making people happy: our offer, our environment, our people, communication, and radical candor. Radical candor, I think we actually had a discussion about this as a people team in our people team meeting this week. And we sort of challenged ourselves to think, is that the right language? I think the Chris Cook video explains what radical candor is. So the full video, the full 17 minutes of the Chris Cook video, I think is actually quite important for people to watch so that they can understand what we mean by radical candor. But the activity that I've suggested here is that ask colleagues as a group, as an ICG group, not just from a site point of view, but from an entire business and organisational point of view, what kind of things feed into these keys. And I've put some examples there. So for offer, I know David mentioned, you know, the quality of our product, the consistency of our product across our sites. Do we have a safe environment, a friendly environment? Is it clean? Are people well trained? Do they have a positive attitude? You know, do we treat them well? Do we pay them fairly? Do we communicate timely with our colleagues? And I know, you know, we're quite honest in the GM meeting about, you know, we're not quite there yet. You know, we've got a bit of work to do on this, and that's fine. But as long as we recognise it and we're honest about it, that's the main thing. And then obviously, as radical candor goes, our honesty and integrity as a brand, as a group, really, really important. So hopefully, if you did want to do that activity with your teams, they might come back with some of those examples. If they come back with any others, please, again, feedback and we can add them to this list. And this isn't a finite list by any means. Can I just stop and ask if there's any questions so far? I'm aware, obviously, I'm a Geordie and I talk really quickly. Please interrupt me if there are any questions or if I need to explain anything again. So that's obviously the 5 keys slide that I've popped into your packs as well there. the last part, the taking ownership part, and again, this is really important to keep the conversation going about making people happy. Obviously, thank the team for what they've just done if you did do any of those activities. And if you did do the group key activity, maybe think about introducing the idea of what it could mean for an individual team or site. I've popped in your pack the people teams keys. And some examples, not all of the examples that Liz had on her slides, but just to try and get our colleagues to think about, okay, we've discussed what it means as a group. What could it actually mean, you know, if this is what the people team are now thinking about what these keys mean for their function, what could it mean for our site? So that's just, if you wanted to use that, a little example to try and get the fires sort of going about what that could mean for them as a site. The idea part, I've put in here prior to the team briefing, consider where your team are now. I think this is really important if we're thinking about what feeds into our 5 keys as a site. We as managers need to be really, really clear about where our people are. So in here, for example, I've put, do we know we're going into refurb soon? Do we know some of these people are going to be displacing and going to different sites? How are they going to be feeling about that? Maybe you've got some team members at your site who are there because their site's closing in refurb. How are they currently feeling? Because how people are feeling on site and at work will have an impact on the keys, won't they? How our people feel, what our offer is, and how our environment feels. You know, I think it really does revolve around people. And then just to explain, you know, making people happy, it's not only about customers, but it's about each other. And I think having that empathy, having that understanding about where each other is in their careers, whether that be in the short term or the long term, can have an impact on how we treat each other. And I think that one of the things I love most about the Making People Happy mission statement is it's absolutely within everybody's power to do that. Every encounter that we have with each other as colleagues or with a customer, it's our choice how we interact with that person and whether we interact with them in a way that's going to make them happier or not. And I think that's a really key message to get across to our colleagues is, you know, what better thing can you come into work to do? We're asking you to come into work to make people happy. I mean, come on, that's what better thing could you come into work to do? But also it's within everybody's power to do that. Absolutely within everybody's power to do that. And then the activity bit, and I've kept this really open, but what I've included in your pack is some blank keys. And I think it would be a nice idea to sort of put the blank keys up in a prominent staff area where people can see them, and ask people just to start writing things on about what are their ideas about what our team, what our site can contribute and what feeds into those 5 keys from a site point of view. You might not want to do them all at once. You know, if you want to keep this going over a number of weeks, you could do one a week, you could do one every couple of weeks. Bring people back into team briefings to talk through their ideas, what they think our offer is, what they think our environment's like, what makes us unique as a site. Because although as a group, we've got consistent things that feed into our keys. We've also got geographical nuances depending on your site, on your people, on your customers as well. So I think that's a really interesting thing to sort of empower your people to think about and then to bring back into team huddles to have further conversations. And this will evolve. Obviously, as we've just said, if you're a site about to go into a refurb, your offer is going to be very different now than it will be once you've reopened. Similarly, from a people point of view, you know, if you've got a better working environment, if you've got a brand new refurbished site, maybe you've got a better team morale. You know, all of these things are things that, because of our value of honesty, we can talk about these and be really open and honest and think about how it feeds into how we treat our customers. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm just going to ask if there's any feedback or any questions on any of that, if that made sense. Paul, from an ops manager point of view, I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's excellent. I think it's what the teams need. You know, we said that from the first day that they need guidance, and we all need to be singing from the same page. So yeah, I think really good. Sorry for the for the low count, but I think that's due to breakfast and checkout time. If I'm being honest.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I thought if I record it and I'm offered one-to-one, anyone. I'm in London yesterday and today at a conference, and then I've heard Fridays on great days either to do these sorts of things. So
but I read through yesterday, and even I've been to every meeting, and it was even clearer to me from what you've produced. So I mean, really good.
Brilliant. Okay, that's good.
Ashley, with me being on day 3 or day 4 now, I think it's from what I've seen out in the sites so far, I think it's a really great layer on top of what the guys are already doing. And I think the key to this is really embedding it early on and, making people happy. It's such a great sort of ethos to have as a team, and the way it looks, and I just think it'll be really easy to land as long as we just keep it alive and keep talking about it. And somebody asked me yesterday what my job role was, and I said, well, making people happy and keeping people happy, and that's really key.
Yeah, and I think it is keeping that language alive, and the language I've used purposefully in that pack is about how we continue to do that, because what we're not saying is we're not doing this already. It's just we're now calling it out explicitly as this is our simplified business message. Everybody goes into work every day to do this. Fab. Okay, any thoughts from Henry, Jason, Sarah? Any questions, anything I can make clearer or help more with, support more with?
I'm happy with that. I think the documents you sent over, like Paul said, explain it a lot clearer. When we're sat in the meeting, obviously it all went in, but just having something sort of tangible there to use and refer back to, and I think it makes a more simple process. The only hurdle there will be is sort of getting around the whole team with the length of time we serve and whatnot, but just split it into little groups.
Yeah.
And I think at the meeting on Monday, we'd actually talked about maybe if you don't have room in your site, maybe going to another site and doing something there and breaking it up a little bit, or maybe 2 sites coming together. And I know it is going to be really difficult with trading pattern, like you said there, Jason, and the time that you guys are on your sites. But I think it's just taking little pockets of opportunity to really drop it and deliver it.
Hi, Ashley. I totally agree with what Jason said there. I think the pack that you sent through is just a really good tool for us to use in our meetings. I agree it's going to be quite difficult to get the full team together, and obviously, our main focus is our customers and making sure our business still operates. So whether we do it in 2 or 3 huddles, or do managers first and then do a team huddle afterwards, that's kind of something that we're going to have to plan in over the next week or so. But initially, I think the pack that you sent through is really useful, and it just gives us that confidence when we're delivering it, which is the main thing. I like the slide at the end as well, like the people functions 5 keys, and then our 5 keys. It just gives us the opportunity to make it really personal for our site. So yeah, I really like that bit.
Brilliant. And totally get it. This is going to pose challenge to get through everybody, and if there's anything we can do as a people function, please just don't hesitate to reach out. If I can come and help, if any of us can come and help, we're there 100%.
Yeah, and I think it's about us keeping it alive as well. Ashley, when we are on site and we're chatting to people and really embedding it.
Yeah, definitely.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, I'm a little bit out of the loop because I'm actually on holiday this week, so I haven't read your emails yet. So apologies for not really contributing much there. I just wanted to check: is there a deadline on this? When have we got to have it briefed out by? Because we're waiting till we close to do it in one hit in the first couple of days of the closure. But I just wanted to know if I needed to get it planned in before that.
It's a great question, actually, Sarah. Not one I know the answer to. As far as I'm aware, I haven't had any timelines given to me. Paul, I don't know if you're more in the loop with if there's timelines to it, or if it is just
No,
a case of when you can.
No, I don't think there's any timelines. I think we just don't want the ball to stop rolling.
Yeah.
So we don't want to say, oh, in 4 or 5 weeks' time we'll start again. We need to kind of whether we drip feed it into managers or whatever, but we just need that ball to start continuously rolling. And look, it'll never stop, will it? That's the process. We just don't want it to stop, start. We want it to keep going on. So. I think a little bit more difficult with Sarah, probably Andy as well, that their sites are actually closing. So when is a good time to make people happy? Because look, we're asking you to move probably either other side of the country, here, there, or everywhere. So it's a little bit difficult for Sarah, I would say, what time is right.
I'd potentially start talking about it sooner rather than later, Sarah. Start dripping it into the conversation with your management team, and then when you do close and you can get your team together, potentially do like a training day, probably at the beginning and potentially at the end, just before you all come back together again, and then re-talk about it just as you're going into a brand new site and get everybody G'd up.
No, that's brilliant. And can I presume, so obviously we will be recruiting through the closure and ready for the relaunch. By then, will the sort of be like support materials in the induction pack as well? Will it have already been put into the induction stuff?
Yeah, induction's one of my next things that I'm going to be looking at. So next week I'm looking at welcome packs for acquisitions. And then the induction will kind of follow on from that, but we'll be putting it definitely in corporate induction, the head office and the support hub induction, and then the site induction's a big piece of work I'm going to be looking at fairly quickly.
Super, thank you.
No problem. And I think as well, thinking about closures and this briefing, it's not just about the briefing, is it? It's about how do we practically keep our colleagues happy while they are displaced. What can we do to make them still feel valued, supported, part of the team, which they are, so it's about thinking like practical things, even just WhatsApp groups, things like that, just keeping people in touch, isn't it? It doesn't need to be anything, it doesn't need to be rocket science, it's just the little things maybe that we can do to continue to make our people happy when they're going through periods of change.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to stop recording.